All right, I get a lot of questions from new business owners on what type of entity they should start their business as, whether it's, sole proprietor, LLC, S corp, C corp. And I also give a lot of presentations on this to first-time owners, or even existing business owners, whether the structure that they have right now is correct. So I'm going to do like a mini video series on going through each structure, covering very basic topics. In this video, I'm going to go through the sole proprietorship, what it is, what it entails, what business owners should be thinking about. I'll also walk through an example of a tax return that a sole proprietor will use when they kind of report their revenues and expenses. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Thank you. All right, so in this video, I'm going to talk about sole proprietorships, how to set one up, but most important, what to think about. So, you're probably a business owner, you're a new business owner, and you're thinking about what type of entity structure to start as a business. And, talking to others, your friends, colleagues, doing searches online, you're seeing sole proprietorships, you're seeing LLCs, S corps, C corps. So in this video, I'm just going to focus on sole proprietorships. Before we kind of go into the details, and this video is going to be really high level, just high level things to kind of consider for a sole proprietorship. But with any of these, you really want to be thinking about, and these are just like a short list of questions about your business and why you're creating it. Are you going to have employees? Right? Because if you're going to have employees, there's certain things that you need to do. And there's certain things that you don't need to do if you don't have employees. Is this going to be like a temporary gig, right? So maybe you just quit a job, you're going to start another full-time job, and you're doing some like part-time consulting work right now. So maybe it doesn't make sense to form a C corp, an S corp, or, a formal partnership right now. Maybe you just operate as a sole proprietorship. Is there any legal exposure to what you're doing, right? Are you just, like I said, just doing simple consulting work? Are you just doing items, services, selling products where there's really no liability? Maybe you don't need that legal protection of an LLC partnership or an S corporation, and you can just operate as a sole proprietorship. Where are you going to be conducting your business, right? Are you going to be working from living, working in New York, right? If you're going to be doing that, then, there's certain, you're going to be filing a New York income tax return at the end of the year to kind of report this revenue. If you're going to be living in New York, but operating the business in another state, you need to, factor in those other rules on, the tax reporting. Are you going to have business partners, right? Are you going to have investors? If so, then, sole proprietorship is not going to apply to you. Because if you're going to have partners, there's going to be more than one of you, and that kind of defeats the whole sole proprietorship. If you're going to have investors are going to put money into your business. That's also going to kind of defeat the whole sole proprietorship. What are the goals of your business, right? Are you planning on selling this thing later on? Like I said, you're going to be planning on raising capital. These are the type of things that you want to think about. But if you just have kind of like an idea, you think you're going to be raising capital, but you're still kind of doing some research on the business, it doesn't hurt to kind of just operate as that sole proprietorship, right? Now, if you go down this route, there are some things to kind of consider. First off, technically, you don't need an EIN, right? So an EIN is like your social security number, but for a business. You can go to the IRS website, and that's where you register for an EIN. But for sole proprietorship, technically, you don't need one. You just use your social security number, and you got your name of your business. Now, if you got this small consulting business, you're going to go forth with the sole proprietorship. What I highly recommend is open up a business bank account. You don't want to commingle your personal stuff with your business. You want to keep it separate. At the tail end of this video, I'm going to show you what the tax return is going to look like for your sole proprietorship and why having a separate business bank account and credit card is going to make it a lot easier for you to put your tax return together. Next up is having an accounting software. There's Wave apps. I know this is, last time I looked at it, it was free to use. It's cloud-based, all online. There's QuickBooks Online. There's FreshBooks. FreshBooks is kind of geared toward that one member or very small team type businesses. Again, all online. There's no software that, you need to download to your computer. You can access all these from from anywhere. Next up, the tax return, right? So you're not going to be filing a separate business tax return for sole proprietorship. So even though you're kind of acting like a business, all your income and expenses are going to be shown on Schedule C on your personal tax return, Form 1040. You don't want to forget this date. So the tax return is due April 15th, and this is the personal tax return due date. Like I said, there's no separate business tax return to file for sole proprietorship. It's April 15th is the due date. And if you're not ready to file, you can file an extension, and that will give you another 6 more months. Now, with the sole proprietorship, there's some tax impacts, and I'll show this again on the sample tax return. You'll be paying a 15.3 self-employment tax on the ordinary net income of the business. So again, revenue, right? Sales, less expenses, right? Your deductions. So revenue, what your customers are paying you for your product or services, less expenses. So like if you buy a new computer, if you're buying software to run the business, if you have some travel, all those are expenses. And then you're going to get to your net income number. Whatever that net income number is, you're going to have to add in another 5.3% tax on that. And you're going to have to pay tax on that on your personal return. So it's kind of like a little downside here of the sole proprietorship, but that's just kind of a fact. Now, this is only on ordinary net income. So if your sole proprietorship is, dividend income, interest income, capital gains, rental income, there's no 15.3% on that income because that's not ordinary income. And then lastly, 2 points here. If you're sole proprietorship, you don't have employees, but you're, paying contractors, you're paying law firms, you're paying accountants, right? You're paying other contractors to help you run your business. You want to make sure before you pay any vendor is to collect a W-9 form. And I have a separate video on this. You collect a W-9 form. You send it to the contractor. They fill it out. You keep it. And then in January, you're going to fill out and file these 1099s. And essentially what you're doing is you're telling the IRS, hey, I paid this contractor over $600. And then the IRS knows, and the IRS also expects that that contractor is going to put that income on their tax return. The amount that you paid them. But there's a box on your tax return that's asked, did you pay anyone over $600? Yes or no? If yes, did you send out a 1099? So in order to get those deductions, you want to make sure that you're filing these forms correctly. And again, you're only filing the 1099. This is more of like an informational form that you're collecting information from your contractors. And then lastly here is you want to hire an attorney and a CPA. CPA to help you out with the taxes, the accounting, and the attorney to help you out with any legal, contracts, or just say you decide to move on from the sole proprietorship. You don't want to do this all by yourself. You want to, hire an expert that knows what they're doing, that, someone that focuses on small businesses. So I'll leave you with that. There's some other things to consider here, but I'm just trying to keep this at a high level, things that I see that, smaller businesses kind of miss. Okay, so your sole proprietor, here's the tax form. So this is going to be shown in your personal tax return. Like I said, no separate business tax return that you're going to file. This is called the Schedule C. And all it is it shows your total revenue, gross receipts, and then you kind of list out your expenses. And then it's going to show your net income, and that's what you're going to be paying tax on. Again, you can see here the name of your sole proprietor, kind of what you do, the address, and then you can see here EIN. So if you're a single member LLC, which is not a sole proprietor, you're a single member LLC and you registered for an EIN, this is where you put it. If you're just a sole proprietor, like I said, you don't need an EIN. if you don't have any employees, you can just put your social security number. Now, if you do have employees, you do need to get an EIN, and this is where you're going to put it. Now, that 1099 question, you can see here. So did you make any payments in the tax year that would require you to file 1099, yes or no? If you answered yes here, then the next question is, did you file those 1099s, yes or no? So that's why, if you're paying people, contractors over a certain amount, over $600, you are required to file these 1099s to them. So it's important to kind of collect those W-9 forms. Again, the W-9 forms, you give to your contractor, they put their name, social security number, address. You keep that, the IRS doesn't see it, and then you use that form to fill out the 1099. So here's the Schedule C, so it's very basic, right? And then you can see here that's asking for your revenue and expenses. And this is where having like an accounting software makes this whole process a lot easier, because you don't need to dig through bank statements or anything. Everything is in a ledger. You can just pull this and then prepare it right away. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Thanks.